In the United States, Spanish is the second most spoken language behind English, and the US has the second highest number of Spanish speakers behind only Mexico. Despite its presence, a majority of Americans tend to pronounce Spanish words not too closely to how they're properly pronounced in Spanish. Today, I'll analyze the ways which monolingual English speakers in the US generally reshape Spanish words to fit the sounds of English, based on patterns with Spanish place names, people names, and Spanish loanwords, a variety I'll be dubbing Español Gringo. This video isn't meant to make fun of or scold anyone for not pronouncing Spanish words perfectly. I will be saying many of these Americanized examples out loud, which may sound cursed. Depending on who you are, that may bring misery or entertainment. Además, creo que debo decir una oración en español para probar que puedo hablarlo con pronunciación correcta. Let's start out with something obvious. The two Spanish R's, R and R, are merged together, becoming R, so both perro and perro would become perro. Another standout feature of Español Gringo is that standalone H is typically pronounced as ha, while in most Spanish dialects it's always silent, so they say hola and not hola for hello. There are certain varieties of Spanish where they pronounce the H in words when it was historically a fa sound, so hacer gets said as hacer since it came from Latin facere with an F. But hombre still has its H silent because it came from Latin homo. While Spanish never aspirates the voiceless stops pa, ta, and ka, English often does at the starts of syllables, so peso and taco are realized more as peso and taco. The voiceless stops ba, da, ga are very often said as fricatives or approximate va, the, and ga, particularly between vowels, but in Español Gringo, they would always be stops, so jugaba becomes jugaba. In general American English, both T and D become the tap ra between vowels, so Spanish pata would be said as para or pata. The clusters tra and dra are rendered as tra and dra in general American English, so cognates tren and dragón are more like train and dragón in Español Gringo. V represents the same sound as B in Spanish, but English speakers reading out Spanish words tend to say it as a distinct va. There would also mostly be a merger between sa and tha, as there is in Latin American Spanish, but tha being written as z before a, o, and u and at the ends of syllables causes Americans to mispronounce it as a voiced za, like in azar or pez. Of course, when trying to become fluent in Spanish or any other language, it is desirable to learn how to perfect your pronunciation, and the best way to do that is with live feedback from native speakers, and Lingoda is what I can easily recommend to do so. Lingoda is an online language school that offers personalized lessons in Spanish, French, Italian, German, English, and Business English, hosted by certified native speakers of these languages. Lessons are held in groups of 5 or fewer in order to maximize your personal engagement and learning, and Lingoda has at least one teacher available for booking for each language 24/7, giving flexibility for any routine you may have. Lessons are designed and catered distinctly for every level of learner from A1 to C1, so whether you want to start learning or want to improve your skills in any of the languages available, be sure to try out Lingoda Flex. There's an Easter sale deal which will last until April 15th, plus a free 7-day trial, so sign up before then using my code LINGO40, all caps, for up to 40% off. The Spanish velar fricative ja, spelled either with J or soft G, is easily interpreted in writing by English speakers as being ja, as in general or jugar, which is actually how the sound was pronounced way back in Old Spanish. Ja is pronounced simply as ya by Americans, as it is in several Spanish dialects, but while most Spanish dialects merge it with the palatal lateral approximant ya, since it's written with a double L, it could be misinterpreted as being la, as in the mispronunciations lanta and calle for llanta and calle. English has no palatal nasal, so ñ is usually approximated to the cluster ñ, as in piñata, or could get mispronounced as a plain n. As a side note, even though both English and Castilian Spanish have the sounds tha and the, Español Gringo ends up without either. Spanish vowels are simply a, e, I, o, and u, and while general American English has a higher quantity of vowels, it's hard to map them to these 5, and there's plenty of variation. In Spanish loanwords, a gets rendered either as a, the near open a, or a. E and o get rendered as either English close mid diphthongs a and o, especially at the ends of words, or the open mid a and o. although most American dialects have the cot-cot merger, meaning all shifts to a. I and u can be pronounced as is in English, but oftentimes are said as I and u respectively, in addition to I being common as well. More consistently, the Spanish sequences ar, ir, or, and ur become ar, ir, or, and ur in Español Gringo. The letters I and U without accent marks are pronounced ya and wa before vowels in Spanish, but English tends to pronounce them as separate vowels. So Santiago and Cuello being pronounced Santiago and Cuello is not out of the ordinary. The silent U in que, ki, ge, and gi could be pronounced, resulting in que and guerra turning into cue and guerra. Spanish has a process called sinalefa, where two or more vowels and separate syllables across word boundaries combine into one. So for example, la isla, meaning the island, is typically pronounced like la isla, as if it was one word. Español Gringo doesn't do this. That's all. To demonstrate Español Gringo for a prolonged period of time, I'm going to read out the conversation section of the 2025 College Board AP Spanish test, but in Español Gringo. Avert your ears. Hola, te llamo para organizar la competencia de talentos para la escuela. Hay tanto que hacer. ¿A quién deberíamos invitar a participar en el concurso? Buenas ideas. Hay algunos que opinan que la competencia se debería enfocar solo en la música. Pero yo creo que sería mejor incluir todo tipo de talentos. ¿Qué piensas tú? Estoy de acuerdo. Oye, ¿y cómo tienes pensado colaborar en la competencia? Genial. Todo el grupo prefiere hacer el concurso al aire libre. Pero ¿qué hacemos si llueve? Tienes razón. Ojalá que saquemos mucho dinero con la venta de los boletos. ¿Cómo podríamos utilizar ese dinero para nuestra escuela? Thank you, Patreon supporters, and until next time, adios. Adios.